You knew which toys were yours before you were old enough to read the price tag. The ones that lit up, the ones that launched things, the ones that came with a parental no built in before you finished the sentence. But wait until you hear about the one that got banned for a completely different reason. Here is a hint. It was not the price. These are the 90s toys every kid wanted but couldn't have. You are about to remember every single one. Stay with us for the last one. It was so big it did not just cost money, it cost square footage. The most powerful thing a kid could do in the early 90s was walk into a room and say nothing. Just walk. Because if your heels lit up with every step, the introduction had already happened. The LA Gear sneakers ran on a pressure-sensitive switch built into the heel. Every footfall fired a row of red lights. Battery-powered status, worn on your feet, visible from across the playground. Kids who had them walked a little slower than usual on purpose. The price was the problem. Nearly $70 for shoes a child would outgrow in 3 months. Mom's logic was airtight. She was not wrong. But to a 9-year-old watching those heels blink in the checkout line, none of that math existed. Most water guns looked like toys. The Super Soaker did not. It ran on a pressurized reservoir the size of a backpack, and one trigger pull soaked whatever was in front of it before it could react. The playground legend grew fast. Kids swore the pressure was strong enough to sting. Parents looked at the box and saw something that belonged in a different category entirely. Not a squirt gun, but a weapon. Mom's no was not about the price. It was about the neighbor's car, the younger sibling, the dog, the living room window. The Super Soaker turned a backyard game into something that felt genuinely out of control. But every kid who never got one still remembers exactly who did. Not every no was about money. Some were about what Mom could already picture happening. Every kid who saw Home Alone 2 walked out of that theater wanting the same thing. Not the pizza, not the hotel suite, the tape recorder. The Talkboy was not even a real product when the film came out. The demand from children across America was so overwhelming that the manufacturer had to build one. It was a variable speed recorder, small enough to fit in a jacket pocket. It had one feature that made it worth everything. Slow the playback down, and suddenly your voice dropped into something that sounded genuinely dangerous. Mom saw through it immediately. It was a device built for recording people without their knowledge and playing back sinister voices, and Mom shut the whole idea down before it even got to the store. She had no idea that a few years later, a different toy would do the listening for real. Or at least, that was the rumor. The box showed a foam fairy spinning gracefully through the air, wings catching the light, landing softly somewhere beautiful. That was the marketing. The reality was a pull-string launcher that fired a spinning projectile at whatever happened to be in the room. Skydancers arrived in 1994 and became one of the fastest-selling toys of the decade. They were genuinely beautiful for about 3 seconds. Then the wings caught a ceiling fan, or a lamp, or someone's face, and the beauty ended abruptly. For Mom, saying no was not a power trip. It was a tactical decision to save the living room lamp and her children's eyeballs. She looked at a toy that launched an unpredictable spinning object indoors and made a decision in under 5 seconds. The Consumer Product Safety Commission eventually agreed with her. Skydancers were recalled in 2000 for causing eye injuries, broken teeth, and facial lacerations. Mom called that one early. Some toys made noise. Furby made conversation. When it launched in 1998, Furby was unlike anything that had been on a shelf before. It blinked. It purred. It learned new words the more you talked to it, and over time it seemed to develop its own personality, depending on how you treated it. Kids did not just play with Furby, they talked to it. They worried about it. Some kids insisted it needed to sleep in their room. That was exactly the problem. A toy that listened, responded, and appeared to remember things did not feel like a toy to a lot of parents. It felt like something with ears. Rumors spread fast that Furby could record conversations and play them back. The rumors were not true, but they spread anyway, fast enough that some secure government facilities actually banned Furby from the building, just to be safe. Mom's no was not about the noise or the batteries or the price. It was about a small, furry object sitting on a shelf, blinking in the dark, that seemed to be paying attention. She was probably overreacting. Probably. By 1999, the playground had a new currency, and it was made of cardboard. Pokemon cards arrived in the United States, and recess turned into something close to a casino floor for 9-year-olds. Booster packs were a gamble by design. You paid for a sealed pack with no idea what was inside, hoping for the one holographic card everyone wanted. The problem came after the pack was opened. Older kids understood the market, younger kids did not. A 9-year-old holding a card worth real money had no idea what they were holding, and a 12-year-old standing right next to them did. Trades happened that were not really trades. Schools across the country were banned, not because of the game, but because of what those packs turned into on the playground. Mom's no was about money, but not the usual way, not the price of the pack. What happened to whatever was inside it once it left the house? She had seen it happen to someone else's kid. She was not letting it happen to hers. Nobody who saw that commercial forgot it. Two kids facing each other across a glowing board, metal ball bearings flying, the announcer's voice dropping low enough to rattle the television speakers. Crossfire. It looked less like a board game and more like something that belonged in an action movie. The game itself was simple. Fire your ball bearings across the board, knock your opponent's puck into the goal before they knocked yours. But the metal slammers were what sealed Mom's decision. Small, heavy, and fired at speed across a plastic surface by children who were not known for their restraint. She picked one up in the toy aisle, felt the weight of it, and put it back on the shelf. The commercial kept running. The song stayed in every kid's head for the rest of the decade. And the kids who actually got it discovered within about 20 minutes that the ball bearings had a talent for rolling under furniture and disappearing forever, sometimes resurfacing years later when the carpet finally got replaced. Every kid who watched Mighty Morphin Power Rangers in 1993 had a ranger, not a favorite, a ranger, and whatever weapon that ranger carried was the one they needed by Christmas morning. The toy weapons were remarkable replicas: the Blade Blaster, the Power Sword, and the Pterodactyl Thunder Whip, sized perfectly for a child to run through the house, swinging at everything in reach. But the real prize was the Megazord, 5 separate vehicles that combined into one giant robot. Owning one meant nothing on its own. The whole appeal was the full set, which meant 5 birthdays worth of asking. Mom's no was simple. She watched 30 seconds of the show and saw nothing but fighting. By 1994, schools across the country had banned Power Rangers play at recess because kids were getting hurt. If it was not safe on a playground, it was not coming into the house as a toy. The kid with the Blade Blaster was briefly the most important person in the room. The kid with the full Megazord did not show up to school. There was no version of childhood where that happened. Some toys got banned at school. The next one got banned before you even made it out the front door. The commercial made them look like freedom. A kid bouncing down the street on what appeared to be miniature trampolines strapped to their feet, defying gravity with every step, grinning like someone who had discovered something the rest of the world had not caught up to yet. Moonshoes were plastic platforms held together by elastic bands, designed to give the wearer a sensation of low-gravity jumping. What they actually gave the wearer was an unpredictable lateral wobble on any surface that was not perfectly flat, which was every surface. Mom looked at them and saw the emergency room, not as a possibility, as a certainty. The elastic bands that created the bounce also created instability in every direction simultaneously. Ankles were not designed for that kind of input. She did not need a medical degree to work that out. The kids who got them discovered she was right within about 10 minutes. The kids who never got them spent years believing they had missed something extraordinary. They had not. But the believing was the whole point. Nickelodeon understood something in the early 90s that no parent wanted to admit. Kids did not just want to play with things, they wanted to destroy them. Gak was the purest expression of that instinct ever sold in a plastic container. It was cold. It was viscous. It made a sound when you pushed it back into the tub that no respectable household appliance should ever produce, and it was fluorescent green. Floam took the same principle and added tiny polystyrene beads so it could be molded into shapes that would harden slightly, and then shed microbeads across every surface they touched for the next 6 months. Mom's no was not emotional. She had seen what happened to carpet when substances like this made contact with it. She understood that no matter how many times a child promised to keep it on the table, a piece would find the white shag rug within 48 hours. Gak did not just stain, it bonded. It became part of the carpet at a molecular level, permanent in a way nothing else in that bedroom ever was. Some no's were about the carpet. The next one was about something nobody talked about until it was too late. Every toy on this list had a reason behind the no. A safety concern, a price tag, a carpet in jeopardy. The Barbie Magical Mansion had all of those reasons. And one more that none of the others had: square footage. The 1990s version stood nearly 4 feet tall. It had 3 stories, a working elevator, a fireplace that lit up, and a doorbell that actually rang. It was the final boss of the Sears Wish Book, the last page a kid turned to before starting over from the beginning. The price sat comfortably above what most families spent on a month of groceries. Mom's no here was not unkind. It was architectural. There was no room in the house where that object could live without becoming the room. She said no to the mansion the way you say no to something you genuinely cannot argue with. Not because you do not understand the wanting, but because some things are too big for the space you actually have. Every kid who circled it anyway understood that on some level. The circling was never really about getting it. It was about saying out loud that you believed something, that grand was possible. That is what the 90s did. It made the wanting feel like enough. And if any of these brought something back that you have not thought about in years, leave it in the comments. Which one did you circle? Which one did you never stop wanting? Every single one gets read.